The American Association of Municipal Executives launched its free job board. That's right, it's absolutely free for you to post your senior and executive level recruitments. So if you have an assistant director position and up that you're trying to fill in your organization, go to jobs.aame.org. That's jobs.aame.org to post your listing today. Again, it's absolutely free. So if you are a city manager, county manager listening to this, if you are an HR director, please share this with your professional networks, post it out on your listservs, get the word out, because we're trying to build the only job board in the nation that is exclusively focused on senior and executive level recruitments. Again, that's jobs.aame.org. Absolutely free. Post your job today. All right. I'm Joe Turner, and this is the City Manager Unfiltered Podcast, a podcast for city managers and other public sector executives. It is the most influential local government podcast in America. And with me today is Hayley Winkelmann. She is a resident of the city of Lamarque, Texas. It's located in Galveston County, just outside of Houston. And the last couple of weeks, I've been spotlighting Lamarque, Texas, because we've had some wild stuff unfolding there. Most notably, from our perspective, the former city manager has been arrested on arson and stolen valor charges. His name's J.B. Pritchett. And the precursor to that is that we have a council member by the name of Joseph Lowry, who's been a provocateur, stirring stuff up. He's just really a controversial individual. He's attacking a lot of local elected officials and government employees, calling them corrupt or even criminals or leading criminal enterprises. And during my interview with TJ Alls, a reporter with I-45 Now, he broke down the Lowry shenanigans. And in that call, in that interview, he informed me that Hayley was leading a recall effort to recall Joseph Lowry. And then shortly after that interview was published, I learned that the recall effort had fallen short by just 8 signatures. And so I wanted to bring Hayley onto the show to talk about Joseph Lowry, her efforts to recall him, and give you guys a better sense of what's going on in Lamarque. So Hayley, welcome to the program. Can you quickly introduce yourself to our audience?
Absolutely. My name is Hayley. I'm a mom of 2 that lives here in Lamarque. Currently a stay-at-home mom, but I'm getting ready to start law school soon, and I've been the proponent of a recall petition for the controversial Councilman Joseph Lowry.
How did Joseph Lowry even first get on your radar? How did they even come onto your, why is a stay-at-home mama too getting involved in local politics to recall an elected official?
So it was actually a meme that he made on Facebook that someone shared that I saw that I found major issue with. It was a depiction of a red or a blue king costume. He said, "Which one should I wear for my first day as king of the city council?" He didn't want to cause any problems.
And what does that mean by that? Is that because of the Democrat-Republican blue-red divide in Lamarque, or why? What's that about?
I wish it were. It is due to the Blood and the Crips gangs. We are a predominantly African American community.
So he was totally trying to do some race baiting with that in terms of stirring up animus within the community.
Absolutely.
Okay.
His whole goal from the start has been to create chaos and stir up animosity.
Now, before we get into, I want to quickly note something, because last week we have some breaking news, and that is that there was a protection order filed by Joseph Lowry's ex-wife in the state of Washington last week. I guess the judge ruled on it. And so before we get into that, and I want to dissect this in more detail later in the interview, can you quickly tell us what's going on with that protective order? Because that's literally breaking news that hasn't even been covered in the local media yet, shockingly.
Yes, I sure can. So this is a protective order filed by his ex-wife, like you said, in Washington State. The details of this order are absolutely horrific. This is the stuff of, people's worst nightmares.
Right.
And this order, it is valid for 5 years. It does restrict his access to weapons. And some of the things that are said in here are just, like I said, horrific.
Yeah, Hayley, we'll unpack that in a minute, Hayley, but why hasn't the local media picked up on this? This is literally was entered into a judgment order on the 24th of July. Do you have any reason, any explanation for why it hasn't been covered? I mean, these are some serious allegations that the court has basically put into this judgment order. And I mean, it's horrific. Like you said, I mean, it is horrific. And so why isn't the local media covering it yet?
I'm not sure. Honestly, I really don't know. I've spoken with local news
Okay.
reporters about it, and they are aware, but as far as why they haven't covered it yet or anything like that, I
Okay, we'll
truly don't
unpack that
know.
more in a minute, but let's talk about this recall effort because you started out as a citizen activist. You wanted to do right by your community and make it better. And so you launched this recall effort against Joseph Lowry. You needed to collect a couple hundred signatures. You submitted well over 200, something in the area of 260 or something like that. And you can give us the details in a second here. And you came up 8 signatures short. So why don't you just quickly tell us what happened there and what the next steps are in this process?
Absolutely. So we were required to, I was required to submit 191 signatures. I did submit 268 signatures. However, when it came back from the city clerk, as far as the number of verified signatures, and there are a few different reasons that signatures can not be verified, but when it did come back as only 183 were certified or verified. And so I unfortunately that's just what happened there, and I did go ahead and just immediately the next day refile the petition, and I'm back in the process of collecting
So
signatures again.
it must have been a little demoralizing, but yet you just got right back on the saddle and decided to keep on plugging away. I mean, that's some perseverance on your part.
Yes.
What do you think went wrong the first go round, and why do you expect to be more successful with this effort?
So the first go around I was not organized. This is my first attempt at any sort of community involvement at
Right.
this type of level. So, I wasn't organized. I didn't have a set group of support. Not everybody, we didn't have what jobs each person would do and things like that quite figured out. We also didn't have access to van in the first 10 days. And so,
You mean for transportation for volunteers?
no, for the voter access network that's used by political parties to
Okay.
speak to registered voters, right? Like
Sorry.
that's how unprepared I was.
I thought you were talking about a vehicle. I didn't realize there was an
Oh no.
acronym.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, no, the yeah, so like we didn't even I didn't even know about van. I had no idea.
So you didn't know who the registered voters were. You didn't know which doors to knock on. You didn't know all that. I got you. Okay, got you.
Correct.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
Correct.
So I have some experience myself. I've done a lot of petitions and recalls, and usually you can get walking sheets from the organizer who will say, "Hey, on this street, this address, these number of people are registered," and you get them to sign and what have you. So what are the requirements for the recall as far as the deadline? When's your deadline? What's your collection date? And are you hoping when would this get on the ballot if you're successful?
Okay, so our actual collection date is August 21st. However, we are targeting and we do already have a very good start. Today actually makes 7 days of us having the petition. But because we do have the 183 that were verified, we have all of their contact information and such. We do have a very good start. So we're targeting to get most of it done by this weekend to get it on the ballot for November. But if we miss, if we're starting to next week, we start to kind of get the timeline really crunchy
Right.
on that ballot. And so it's our goal to have it done, but if not, it would be called for a special election.
Okay. Yeah, things can get a little tricky when you're doing those initiatives. It also depends on what kind of support, uh, indirectly or directly, you have from the public officials because they have a certain amount of time to verify those signatures. And sometimes, depending on the political climate, they can either try to speed up that process or they could try to stall it out and force you
Correct.
onto a later time frame. Yeah, absolutely. When I talk to TJ Alls and I look at some of the reports in the newspaper and I see some of the social media comments, I mean, there's a lot of people out there who are really intimidated and fearful of Mr. Lowry. you got a massive gun collection. I've seen pictures, and I'm kind of curious what's going to happen now that that PFA has been filed. We're going to unpack that in a moment, but do you have people who are not interested in signing the petition because they're fearful and they're concerned? I mean, these are public documents, right? Public records.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So do you think that you're going to be able to ultimately get those signatures then?
Yes, I do. Honestly, the PFA coming out really makes it where voters, when I show that to voters, they're very not that, they're like, that person should not be in office. That's not
Right.
someone we want to represent us.
And do you think that because there's these people who are fearful of signing, that if you do get on the ballot, you're going to have more success in the privacy of the ballot box when it comes to people voting to recall Mr. Lowry?
100%.
Okay.
100%. I will say, so there are multiple people who refused to sign last go round due to fear of retaliation. However, there were
Absolutely.
two specific elderly women who I did send an email to the mayor and our other elected officials along with the police department requesting, because they're living in fear and of their elected official, and that's really not okay. So I did request that they go by their homes and speak with them.
I kind of allay those fears a little bit.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Like, not even to get them to sign. I wouldn't even ask them this go round, but like, they're elderly ladies, they live alone, they see what he's doing, they see what, they see what's being said, and it scares them.
Yeah. Yeah. Understandably so. He portrays himself as a very intimidating, masculine, strong warrior type personality online with guns and weapons. And he's not a small man.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
Um, yeah. So, what are the reasons for why you want to recall? I recall Mr. Lowry. I've talked to TJ Alls. He kind of gave us a rundown, obviously, but from your perspective as a citizen living in Lamarck, and for the audience, only people who can sign this recall are the people who live in his district. This is not a citywide recall election. It's you're based on a very small district in Lamarck. Um, why are the reasons? What are the reasons for you wanting to recall Mr. Lowry?
my specific reasons are the level of representation that he's providing. Quite honestly, while the PFA is awful and there's, quite all the allegations are all, everything that's being said and things that we're going to cover here in a minute are obviously not okay. But he, as an elected official, he is my representative for my district.
Right.
And he does not do his job. And there's no other way to put it. He has left at least four meetings early within the past year. And that's off the meetings that I was able to watch on YouTube. The city has taken some of them down. So he's left at least four meetings in the past year with no excuse. No concerns for our district was put on the record during those meetings because he was not there to do it. He's been censured four times, including for calling the children of Lamarck derogatory names and for calling all the citizens of Lamarck were all apparently thugs and criminals. He also accepted $50,000 in COVID grant relief funds that he did not qualify for.
I don't know if you had a chance to listen to my interview with TJ Alls on
I
that
did.
subject, but TJ basically said that essentially the EDC has not wanted to prosecute it, and the council has not apparently wanted to really take any action. And so, therefore, according to TJ, his argument is that since none of the key players or organizations really want to do anything about it, there's really not much that can be done. However, there was a little bit of a development this week. Can you educate us as far as what happened on Monday?
Absolutely. So on Monday, we did finally have our joint EDC and City Council special meeting. The COVID-19 business grants were on the agenda, and while the EDC board moved to hold off their decision on auditing until they had the opportunity to discuss it privately, the city council did make a motion, and it was passed to direct the EDC board to audit those grant documents within 60 days.
Do you know if they're auditing just Lowry's or all of them?
All of them.
Okay, because Mr. Olds made the argument that there might be some concern that it was more than just Lowry's grant application that was sort of given some sort of exceptions or waivers or allowed to go through the process, even though it didn't technically meet the requirements.
Correct. So that's what's been said.
Yeah. There's
However,
no evidence from your
right.
knowledge that there were actually any waivers or exceptions given to Lowry,
No,
right? Okay.
there's no waivers that any exceptions or there's no evidence of waivers or exceptions on any of them.
Right.
Just so we're clear.
Yeah.
There were no exceptions provided. There's been no document. There is no evidence of that. What the EDC board has said and what the mayor has said and everyone has said, and the timeframes do back it up, is that they open these applications, and then the application timeframes were closed within a week, and then the money was distributed within 7 days of that.
Wow.
This was a very quick
That's very quick
process.
process. Yeah, very quick.
They were literally building the plane as they were flying it. No one in and that's living in today's time has ever experienced a pandemic. Nobody knows what to do or anything like that. So they were building that plane as they were flying it, creating this program that did benefit many, many, many businesses within our community. And when we're talking about the number of grants, they awarded over $1 million in
Yeah.
grants. So it was a substantial amount, and it was done very quickly. And they took applications for face value.
Yeah, and I mean, but it's very clear that at least it seems to me, based on what I understand, that the entire purpose of that grant was to support local businesses, brick and mortar business in Lamarck that were actually generating sales tax revenue, and Lowry's businesses did not meet those requirements. Yeah,
Correct. So there
I
were the
mean,
4 requirements: 50 or fewer employees, not a home based business, an actual operational address in Lamarck, and to contribute to the state sales tax fund for Lamarck. That did not happen. I did pull those records through the state comptroller's office.
yeah.
He did list his home address, and the actual operational address of his business was in San Leon, Texas. So he did have an operational address. It's not as if he didn't. It
Right.
just was not in Lamarck. So that means that 3 out of the 4 criteria he did not meet. The only one that he did meet was 50 or fewer employees.
So, okay, so we have Lowry, you have this recall going. You have essentially until roughly August 18th. You're going door to door to gather these signatures. You got volunteers who are helping you because you got some momentum now that you got so close. I'm sure people now see that, hey, she really got close. If we just kind of pitch in, we can kind of get her over the finish line and make sure we get this thing taken care of and get it on the ballot in November for the recall. Why don't we talk a little bit more about the breaking news that you uncovered? Or I'm not sure if you're the one that got the information. You're my source, so I don't know where you got the information. But there's a couple things that really have come to light in the last week. The protective order that we just talked about that we're going to go into in more detail, and then also the revelation that he had another felony conviction back in 1997. When I talked to TJ Alds, because one of the arguments that I've seen in the community and social media when I was doing my research in preparation for my conversation with TJ was that people have argued that Lowry should never even been qualified to run for office because he had an outstanding felony conviction. Now, when I spoke to Mr. Alds with I-45 Now, he talked about the 2005 conviction for methamphetamine, that was expunged apparently in the state of Washington. And so he might have been exempted from even having to disclose it on that candidate questionnaire form in order to run for office. However, documents that you sent me literally an hour ago before we started this podcast, you've uncovered evidence that he was actually convicted on felony theft charges back in 1997. So let's unpack this, okay? What do you know about his expungement? Do you know if anything about the expungement that he got in the state of Washington and whether or not it covered only the 2005 methamphetamine charges, or does it also cover everything prior to that?
So I do know about that. It does not cover anything prior.
Okay.
It wasn't an expungement. So basically what happened is the Blake decision in Washington state, um that vacated all drug possession related charges.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay, okay, okay,
that
okay. So he didn't get an expungement per se from a pardon from the governor.
mm-mm,
This was a state legislative act that basically said, "Hey,
correct.
we're going to wipe out all these drug convictions." And in a lot of the states, there's a belief that a lot of these drug offenses were disproportionately impacting minority members of the community, what have you, and especially with a lot of the marijuana offenses, where drug
Yes.
legalization and what have you. So there's also that element as well. Okay,
Hmm.
what we're saying is basically the drug charges related to the 2005 were basically wiped across the board,
Correct.
and
Correct.
that
Because of it.
but he was manufacturing methamphetamine. That includes that as well.
But it just, because of the way because of the conviction under which statute he was convicted, that particular statute happened to be one that vacated all convictions per the Blake decision.
He was arrested on more than just a drug charge. There was I think a firearm charge that might have been involved. I think there might have been an obstruction, lying to police officers about,
Yes.
I think it almost looked that he misrepresented himself and gave the name of a family member to try to get out of getting arrested. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know if was he found guilty of any other felony charges that were not drug related, I guess, because I guess my question would be, if he was, well, that legislation only applies to the drug offenses. What about these other non-drug felony charges in 2005 if he was convicted of them?
So he was also convicted of felon in possession of a firearm after.
Okay.
But because of the Blake decision vacating that charge, that was vacated as well. Now that this 1997 felony theft conviction has been uncovered, that's going to be up to the police department and the proper investigative bodies to determine where exactly that occurred.
Okay.
Because there are 50 states in the United States. It's not in Oregon, and I'm not sure if it's in Washington. From what I've been able to find in Washington, I have not been able to find it. However, Washington isn't exactly the easiest state to get all of someone's criminal record. It's all set up by county and then by the courts levels. And so it's quite a bit of searching
Okay.
to be able
Okay.
to get it all together.
So the Washington case, where the 2005 charge, it says that he has a felony conviction from 1997 for theft in the first degree, but we don't know exactly what state that theft charge occurred. Is that what you're
Correct.
saying? Okay.
Correct.
All right.
So that particular that 1997 case, there's one woman in the community that has been bringing it up. And everybody was kind of saying that she was crazy. Like, she's just making stuff up, and she's like,
Right.
"No, I know, I read this. Like, I know this exists. Like, and nobody will listen to me. It exists."
And to your knowledge, nobody to this date, nobody in the media is aware or has covered this 1997 felony theft conviction, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. Nobody was even aware of it until, I mean, I found the information for it yesterday and provided it to people.
Okay.
No, I don't believe anyone truly was aware that there was any proof that there was another felony conviction out there. We had heard it, but there was no proof.
Okay, so to bring the audience up to speed, we have an issue related to whether or not he was ever even qualified to run for office in the first place. And the issue was surrounding what was known about this 2005 methamphetamine production, possession, conviction, or whatever, along with some other charges. However, we were told, based off the reporting by TJ Ald, that because that drug offense had been expunged, or the Blake decision that you refer to, state legislation, that therefore it was essentially expunged and like it never happened, and therefore he did not have to disclose it on that candidate questionnaire in order to run for office. However, since that has come to light that there's a 1997 felony theft conviction, that now needs to be investigated to see if he should even be holding office. That's number one.
Correct.
Right. Number two, we have this recall effort now, And while you maintain that he should be recalled on his face for being a poor representative, not attending meetings, leaving early, showing up late, never mind all the other shenanigans we've talked about with his just really unseemly conduct and the race baiting and so forth and so on. You have the EDC issue, right, with the COVID grant money, which might have been
Correct.
fraudulent, appears to be fraudulent. I don't know. We'll see. That has to be discussed or weighed in by the council and the EDC. But now we also have this PFA in Washington, where his ex-wife was just filed it, I guess, earlier this year, but it was entered into the public record on July 24th. And again, this is breaking news that has not been covered by the local media. So why don't you unpack exactly what is going on with this PFA? Because there's a lot of different tentacles on this document and the allegations that are basically made within it.
Natalie Johnston is Joseph Lowry's ex-wife.
Okay.
She formerly was known as Amber. Okay. And after
She has basically changed her name because she went through this horrific experience. She went through a name change process, correct?
Correct. She was actually the second person in Washington state to ever be approved of a name and social security number change to escape domestic violence.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And so a few months back, Joseph, as he is from Washington state, right?
Yep.
He had a family member pass away. So he missed meetings and was on funeral leave. Okay. Well, during that time, and she had had previous domestic violence protective orders. However, after she got the name change, she didn't feel comfortable giving up her name to him and her new location. So that all lapsed.
So that's
Now,
kind of a little bit of a wrinkle, right? Because you're saying in order to get the PFA filed, she would have had to do it under her new name, but yet she didn't want
correct,
to risk exposing herself to get this protective order, right? Essentially, that's kind of
correct,
this catch 22 situation. Okay, all right,
correct. Because you have to, for a PFA to be given, they have to know who they have to stay away from.
right.
So then he went on funeral leave. She received a creepy text. It was just a one-word text in the name, and it was Joe, which is something that he used to do to her.
So she gets a random text out of the blue from someone saying Joe, essentially.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. And then a few days later, she got home, and there was a smiley face on her door in Vaseline, the same smiley face that he used to taunt her with when he would abuse her.
In the order, it says when she'd take a shower, or like when he'd fog up the mirror,
Correct.
the sliding glass door in the shower, he would leave smiley faces or something, right?
Correct. And it wasn't, he would leave smiley faces, but it's a specific smiley face. It's not
Got you.
just like a random,
Right,
just a
right.
little smiley face. No, it's a specific
It's
smiley
got a
face.
little flair to it, a little identification
Correct.
to it. Got you. All right.
Correct.
All right.
And that particular smiley face was put on her door in Vaseline.
Okay.
And so she filed under her new name and everything. She had to give up her name, her address, all of this information to file this. That's how scared she was. She filed the new protective order.
And
And
when did she file that? Was that or like back in March or so of this year, April? Do
it
you
was
know?
it was originally filed in April. And
Okay.
they were set to have a hearing on it in April. And then unfortunately she experienced, from my understanding, some sort of loss in her family.
Okay.
And so she missed that hearing. So then it was refiled the next day. And then it's taken this long to get through the process because the system is never quick.
Right.
And then now it's been granted, and all of these horrific things are now public record.
So I don't know exactly how PFAs work, but I read the PFA, you sent it to me, and in a way, it's almost like it copies and pastes her narrative to a degree. So it's the court basically said that they found by a preponderance of the evidence or whatnot that she was more credible than he was, and so in the court statement, essentially mentions some of these horrific things that Joe Lowry is accused of doing. Now, can you tell us what the court basically said that he had done, or what they believed he had done based off of the evidence submissions submitted by his ex-wife?
Sure. So the court stated that they did believe everything that she had said. That's now part of the court record, that she was kidnapped off the freeway. He forced into a small concrete room that was soundproof, tied up, left overnight, held hostage for approximately 8 months.
Yeah. So for 8 months, Joseph Lowry is accused and alleged to have kidnapped his ex-wife because she was basically running away, held her captive in a concrete, soundproof type basement or room, tied her up, right? Shackled her up or
Mhm.
whatever at times. And this is why her young daughter is upstairs and also, being held captive essentially by this individual. She was not permitted to use the restroom on a regular basis, not permitted to shower on a regular basis. Some pretty horrific stuff, correct?
Correct, correct. I mean, absolutely. It's some of the worst things I've ever heard of happening to someone outside of a movie.
Yeah. And the crazy part is it reads that it goes even one step beyond that. I mean, he originally sort of before this whole incident took her from her place of residence and him and family members moved her into his house and basically forced her to live with him. Correct?
Correct. And they did kidnap her. I mean, they left
So
they
more, so basically more. Well, I should say they kidnapped her the first time out of the vehicle, and the second time they basically took all her stuff and basically stole it, and so she had to move in. Or kind of this weird. They had this weird cohabitation kind of multiple resident type deal. It's convoluted, complex relationship dynamic, and then it gets even worse, right? Because doesn't Joseph Lowry bring her young daughter into the mix in terms of weaponizing her against her own mother?
he does. He does.
Explain that to the audience, please.
So she was 6 years old at the time when they were together. The daughter was. And first off, the daughter was exposed to her mother being held hostage, abused, beaten, all of those things. But the Joseph taught her daughter how to set the home on fire. He had her practice, and this isn't in this particular court document, but it is in the other court document, that and some of the supplementals that were filed, that he actually had her practice her aim, like firearm aim, by shooting at her mom's head with a BB gun as well.
Oh, she actually
So,
shot the gun?
yeah, at her mom's head,
Oh,
a BB gun. And so,
yikes.
and and then when he taught her how to set the house on fire, he did it in real time by pouring gasoline around her mother in the home.
This is disgusting.
It
Disgusting
it
stuff.
truly is. And then and everything else that she said later really made sense. With there were PFAs filed before, not everything was followed through with, and all of these things. But if he was constantly holding her hostage, taking her keys, taking her phone, not letting her talk to anyone, and using any means of control possible to control her and prevent her from speaking out or being free from him, everything, it all makes sense why the records are the way they are back in 2007 and 2008 when this occurred.
Yeah, so for the audience, I'll bring you up to speed. She claims that she had filed multiple PFAs or attempted to file multiple PFAs, but each time that the court dates got near, she would basically be shackled or bound or whatnot. So she would miss her court dates, and therefore the court could never impose the PFAs on Lowry. Correct?
Correct, correct. And there was also one instance, what finally was the proponent for her to be able to get the name change approved and the social security number changed approved by the court there, was that Lowry did violate the protective order. He approached her in public. He grabbed her by the wrist. He attempted to force her into a vehicle with him, kidnap her again, and she was able to get away and drive away.
Now, what is this PFA? What kind of restrictions have been placed on Lowry? Because I believe there's a removal of firearms and also some sort of anger management or counseling or something like that. Why don't you unpack that for us? And can you also tell us if that applies to the state of Texas? Meaning, if you have a PFA filed against you in the state of Washington and you're forced to sort of give up your firearms, but you live in another state, does does Texas now require to make sure that those firearms are removed? Can you unpack that for the audience?
Yes, absolutely. So the state law in Texas does state that any protective order granted by any court in the land of the United States and even some other areas, if there is a domestic violence order in place that restricts weapons, you are not allowed to have access to weapons.
So Hayley, I've seen pictures of Lowry. He's has pictures of where it looks like he owns dozens, if not more than 100 firearms, weapons in his home. Correct?
Correct.
So you're saying that based off of your understanding of the law, he has to forfeit those firearms and give them to the authorities. Correct?
He doesn't have to give them to the authorities. So Texas law states that he can't have access to them. They can't be in the home or
Okay.
on any property or in any vehicle or anything like that. He could sell them, but he does have to provide evidence that he sold them.
Okay.
There's no saying, "Oh, I gave them away," or "I did this," or "I did that." That's not how it works anymore here because
Okay.
of things that have happened to victims of domestic violence after protective orders have been put in place.
Do you know if Lamarck Police Chief Aragon has been contacted or the department has been contacted in any way regarding this PFA and these firearms, or where that stands, or where are we at in that process?
Yes, so Lamarck Police Chief Aragon, as well as our community police officer for our neighborhood, because Joseph and I do live around the corner from one another. Sean Lozika, and then Chad Wagner, who is our deputy police chief. They are all aware. They have been provided both standard copies and certified copies of the protective order. Once we get done here, I will be taking a certified copy as well as evidence of the photos, evidence of him owning all the weapons, the body armor, the handcuffs, because it's not a normal just cache of weapons that people have for hunting or something like that. This is, I mean, like you said, probably but somewhere between 75 and 100 firearms that are, these are, and armor and things, like it's like he's prepared for war.
Yeah.
So I will be dropping that off at the sheriff's department. As far as what happens after that, I don't know. But I do know that I am taking those over there. I do have the proof of him having them all. I do have the proof of where his wife tried to say they dumped him in the ocean. And then I got pictures of him the very next day with guns and ammunition in his driveway.
Okay. So, man, there's so much here with this guy. What's going on with there's like a psychological or anger management deal with can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I'm sorry. I that slipped my mind, but he has been ordered to undergo a mental health evaluation. And in that mental health evaluation, it's I believe it's called a collaborative evaluation, which means that the evaluator is in contact with either Natalie or her attorney. It will probably be her attorney, where the evaluator is provided all the facts and evidence in the case and everything that's transpired, so that someone is not able to pull the standard narcissist routine and just kind of make pretend like everything's okay. Right. Meanwhile, it's really not. That is something that the court did order as well. He is also ordered to undergo a domestic violence evaluation in his home.
Okay.
And that is something that, unfortunately, his wife is a domestic violence victim. There is evidence of it. I have screenshots of, where she's begging him to replace her phone after he broke it. And
you mean his current wife?
Yes, his current wife.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. But she's been a staunch defender of him publicly on social media, I believe, correct?
Correct. She is a staunch defender of him. Honestly, I'm very thankful I'm not in that position. I'm not sure how I would react. It's clear that if she's not a staunch supporter of him and doesn't do what he wants, there should at least be very real fear that something very serious could happen based off of what has happened previously, because it's not just Natalie with this single protective order. It's been a pattern throughout his history with women.
So this is because his current wife is believed to be his third wife. The protective order that we were talking about earlier was for his first wife, that we believe or understand about his background,
Mm-hmm.
and he also had a second wife where there was some
Correct.
issues. And you talk about the collaborative. I don't know how that process works, but I assume that means that they're going to interview members of his current home or dwelling, or I would assume that, right? And you shared with me some video, some body cam footage taken about a year ago, last summer, involving Joseph Lowry's then 13-year-old son, who
Mm-hmm.
had, I don't want to say he ran away, because it wasn't like he ran away as far as trying to, going off someplace and no one knew where he was at. He went over
Right.
to a friend's house to basically flee the home for his safety, as I understand it, based off the video. And this very articulate 13-year-old at the time is explaining to the Lamarck Police Department that he's fearful of going back home to his father, who is verbally and physically abusive, correct?
Correct.
Do we know what the status is of that and what's going on there?
I do know the status of that particular whole debacle. Randall Aragon, and I have it in writing, that's why I'm comfortable saying it like this. Randall Aragon said that they deferred to CPS, and then CPS said they deferred to them. So
So
nobody did anything.
okay, all right. But didn't you? Has anyone? Does anyone? Is a local media aware of that body cam footage involving the 13-year-old son?
I am not sure,
Okay,
honestly, but I do want to go ahead and say that his second wife, that child's mom, there have been multiple protective orders put in place
by
for
her?
her as well.
Oh,
For her, yeah,
she's filed PFAs.
correct. He's had
Oh,
PFAs against his own children. It's Texas court records are not does or PFAs are, and all that is in everything that goes on. Family law here in Texas is sealed.
okay.
So all you can see but you can see if you look up the court records for the dissolution of their marriage, it's like 5 pages. I've been married and divorced before. They fought that. I mean, the divorce was just truly just finalized a couple of weeks ago.
Wait. His divorce from his second wife was finalized a couple weeks ago.
It's like truly they just had a jury trial
Well, how could
last
he be
month
married? How could he be married
on.
to this? How could he be married to this current lady?
So I'm not sure if they are legally married, if they are
Or just putting
consider
themselves out there?
themselves
Okay,
married, right?
okay.
Because in Texas, if you live together more than 6 months and you do, say that that's your husband and wife, you are considered common law married, which is, recognized by the
Interesting.
courts as legally married. So I'm
Interesting.
not sure about all of that, but I do
But
know
I
that
but I
there.
assume but I assume they've been putting themselves out there as husband and wife more than just 2 weeks ago, right? That's probably been they've
Oh
been
yeah,
okay. All
for
right.
years.
So
Hmm.
oh, okay. Alrighty. Very fascinating. Okay. All right. Wow, Hayley, you got your hands full on the mark. That's a lot of ground we covered. Okay. How do can people, if they want to support you, although most of my audience is not going to be living in Lamarck, obviously, because my audience is a national audience for city managers and public sector executives, but anyone who comes across this podcast, how should they get in touch with you, Hayley?
Yeah, they can just follow me on Recall Joseph Lowry on Facebook, or they can just reach out to my regular profile. It's Hayley Winkelmann. It's
Okay.
the same picture that's in all the newspapers and all that stuff.
I will link to those profile pages in the show notes so that people can get in touch with you if they want to help out or participate in some way. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Do you have any final words or comments you'd like to share?
I don't. I don't. Thank you for having me, though. This has been great.
Thank you very much. I'm Joe Turner. This is the City Manager Unfiltered podcast, a podcast for city managers and public sector executives. If you enjoy the content of the show, please hit that follow, subscribe button on your platform of choice, and or leave a rating and review on your platform of choice, especially those Spotify and Apple users. Thank you very much for listening. Catch you next week.